Your story has the power to ignite a fire in someone's soul, to lift them from the depths of despair, and to show them that if you made it through, they can make it through too. And I need you to hit that subscribe button right now and watch every single minute of this video, because what you're about to discover will change how you see your struggles, your setbacks, and your story forever. Les Brown says that you have something within you that is greater than whatever is happening to you. And that something includes every painful experience, every setback, every moment of doubt, every failure, and every triumph. Because all of these experiences combine to create the unique story that only you can tell. And that story has the power to change lives. According to Les Brown, most people are walking around carrying stories of transformation, stories of overcoming, stories of breakthrough, but they keep these stories locked inside because they don't realize the incredible power they possess to inspire, encourage, and change someone's life forever. Les Brown believes that your story is not just about you. It's about every person who needs to hear that someone who looked like them, talked like them, came from where they came from, faced what they're facing, and still found a way to rise, still found a way to overcome, still found a way to create something beautiful from something broken. When Les Brown talks about the power of story, he's not talking about fairy tales or fiction. He's talking about the raw, unfiltered, authentic truth of your journey. Because that truth contains within it the seeds of hope that someone else desperately needs to plant in their own life. Les Brown says that your mess is your message, your test is your testimony, and your scars are proof that you survived something that could have destroyed you. And when you share that proof with others, you give them permission to believe that they can survive too. According to Les Brown, every single person who has ever achieved anything significant has a story of struggle behind their success. And it's not the success that changes lives, it's the struggle, it's the journey, it's the process of getting back up after being knocked down that gives people the strength to get back up themselves. Les Brown believes that when you keep your story to yourself, you rob the world of the gift that your experience can provide. Because somewhere right now, someone is facing exactly what you faced, feeling exactly what you felt, and thinking that they're the only one who has ever been through what they're going through. The first principle Les Brown teaches about the power of your story is that authenticity is everything. Because people can sense when you're being real and when you're being fake. And it's your realness, your vulnerability, your willingness to share not just your victories, but your defeats that creates the connection that can change a life. Les Brown says that when you try to present yourself as perfect, as someone who never struggled, as someone who had it easy, you disconnect yourself from the very people who need your story the most, because they can't relate to perfection, but they can relate to struggle. They can relate to pain. They can relate to the journey of overcoming. According to Les Brown, the most powerful stories are not the ones where everything went smoothly, but the ones where everything went wrong and the person found a way to make it right, where they hit rock bottom and found a way to climb back up, where they faced impossible odds and found a way to beat them. Les Brown believes that your lowest moments, your darkest hours, your biggest failures are not things to hide from or be ashamed of, but rather they are the most valuable parts of your story because they show people that it's possible to survive the unsurvivable and overcome the impossible. When Les Brown shares his own story of being labeled educably mentally retarded, of being told he would never amount to anything, of facing rejection after rejection, he's not sharing it to get sympathy, he's sharing it to show people that labels don't define you, that other people's opinions don't determine your destiny, and that where you start doesn't have to determine where you finish. Les Brown says that his story is not unique in terms of struggle, because everyone has struggles, but it's unique in terms of the decision he made to not let his struggles define his limits. And that decision is something anyone can make regardless of their circumstances. According to Les Brown, when you share your story authentically, you give people 3 precious gifts: hope that they can overcome their circumstances, permission to believe in themselves despite what others have said about them, and proof that transformation is possible, no matter how impossible it might seem. Les Brown believes that hope is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and your story is a delivery system for hope, a way to transfer your belief in possibility from your heart to someone else's heart. The second principle Les Brown teaches is that your story must be told with passion and conviction, because people don't just need to hear your words, they need to feel your heart. They need to sense your emotion. They need to experience your conviction that what you're sharing is not just information, but transformation. Les Brown says that when you tell your story with passion, you do more than inform people, you inspire people. You ignite something within them that has been dormant. You awaken their own belief in what's possible for their lives. According to Les Brown, passion is contagious, and when you speak with genuine passion about your journey, about your struggles, about your breakthroughs, that passion jumps from you to the listener and creates a spark that can ignite their entire life. Les Brown believes that you can have the most incredible story in the world, but if you tell it without passion, without emotion, without conviction, it will fall flat and fail to create the impact it could have created. When Les Brown speaks, you can hear the passion in his voice. You can feel the conviction in his words. You can sense that he believes with every fiber of his being that what he's sharing has the power to change lives, and that belief becomes infectious. Les Brown says that people won't remember exactly what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And when you share your story with passion, you make them feel like anything is possible, like they have the power to change their circumstances, like they are not victims of their past, but architects of their future. According to Les Brown, the difference between a story that entertains and a story that transforms is the level of passion and conviction with which it's told, because passion has the power to bypass the rational mind and speak directly to the heart. Les Brown believes that when you speak from your heart about your heart, when you share your deepest struggles and your greatest triumphs with genuine emotion, you create a heart-to-heart connection that can literally change someone's life in an instant. The third principle Les Brown teaches about sharing your story is that timing is everything, and you must be sensitive to when people are ready to hear what you have to share. Because the same story told at the wrong time can fall on deaf ears, but told at the right time can change everything. Les Brown says that there are seasons in people's lives when they're ready for change, ready for hope, ready for a new perspective, and your story can be the catalyst that moves them from one season to the next. According to Les Brown, divine timing is real, and often the reason you went through what you went through was so that you could be prepared to help someone else who is going through the same thing at exactly the moment they need to hear from someone who understands. Les Brown believes that every person you encounter is either coming out of a storm, in the middle of a storm, or about to enter a storm, and your story has the power to help them navigate whatever storm they're facing. When Les Brown talks about being a storm shepherd, he means someone who has learned to navigate life's storms and can help guide others through their storms. And your story is your qualification for being a storm shepherd in someone else's life. Les Brown says that sometimes people aren't ready to hear your story because they're still too close to their pain, too raw from their experience, too overwhelmed by their circumstances. And in those moments, your job is not to force your story on them, but to love them where they are and wait for the right moment. According to Les Brown, wisdom is knowing not just what to say and how to say it, but when to say it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present with someone in their pain without trying to fix them or change them or inspire them. Les Brown believes that there will come a moment, a divine moment, when that person is ready to hear that there's hope, that there's a way out, that someone else made it through. And when that moment comes, your story can be the bridge that carries them from despair to hope. The fourth principle Les Brown teaches about the power of your story is that it must be told with humility, because it's not about making yourself look good, it's about making God look good. It's about showing His power to transform lives, His ability to take broken things and make them beautiful, His grace that covers our mistakes, and His love that never gives up on us. Les Brown says that when you share your story, you're not the hero of the story. God is the hero. You're simply the vessel He used to demonstrate His power.
And when you approach your story from this perspective, it becomes infinitely more powerful because people sense that there's something bigger than you at work in your life. According to Les Brown, pride will kill the power of your story faster than anything else. Because when people sense that you're trying to impress them rather than inspire them, when they feel like you're bragging rather than blessing, when they perceive arrogance rather than authenticity, they'll tune you out and turn you off. Les Brown believes that the most powerful testimonies come from people who are completely transparent about their failures, their weaknesses, their mistakes, and their dependence on God's grace, because this transparency creates space for God's power to be displayed in their story. When Les Brown shares about his own struggles with self-doubt, his battles with fear, his moments of wanting to give up, he's not trying to make himself look bad. He's trying to make God's transforming power look amazing by showing what he can do with someone who was broken, beaten down, and counted out. Les Brown says that your story
Is not ultimately about your strength. It's about God's strength working through your weakness. It's not about your wisdom. It's about God's wisdom guiding you when you didn't know which way to turn. It's not about your power. It's about God's power lifting you when you couldn't lift yourself. According to Les Brown, when you tell your story with humility, you give people hope, not in you, but in the God who transformed you. And that hope is infinitely more powerful than any hope they could place in human beings because God never fails, God never gives up, and God's power never runs out. Les Brown believes that the goal of sharing your story is not to make people dependent on you, but to make them dependent on God. Not to point them to your strength, but to point them to the source of all strength. Not to make them followers of you, but followers of the one who can truly change their lives. The fifth principle Les Brown teaches about the life-changing power of your story is that you must be willing to share it even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's painful, even when it requires you to be vulnerable, because the stories that have the power to change lives are usually the ones that cost something to tell. Les Brown says that easy stories don't change lives, comfortable stories don't transform hearts, surface-level stories don't reach soul-deep pain. But when you're willing to go deep, to share the real struggle, to expose the real pain, that's when your story becomes a lifeline for someone who is drowning. According to Les Brown, the enemy of your destiny wants to keep your story locked up inside you because he knows the power it has to set other people free, to give them hope, to show them that what God did for you, he can do for them. Les Brown believes that every time you share your story authentically, you strike a blow against hopelessness. You push back against despair. You declare that no situation is too far gone, no person is too broken, no dream is too dead for God to resurrect and restore. When Les Brown talks about being uncomfortable, he's talking about the discomfort that comes with vulnerability, with exposing your struggles to people who might judge you, with reliving painful memories in order to help someone else avoid the same pain, with being transparent about your failures in order to highlight God's faithfulness. Les Brown says that your comfort zone is the enemy of your purpose, and if your purpose includes using your story to change lives, then you must be willing to get uncomfortable, to be vulnerable, to share not just the pretty parts of your journey, but the ugly parts that show God's transforming power. According to Les Brown, the stories that change lives are the ones that say, I've been where you are, I felt what you feel, I faced what you're facing, and I'm here to tell you that there's a way out, there's hope, there's a future for you that's bigger than your past. Les Brown believes that when you're willing to be vulnerable with your story, you give other people permission to be vulnerable with theirs. And vulnerability is where healing happens, where connection occurs, where transformation begins. The sixth principle Les Brown teaches is that your story is not just about your past. It's about your present and your future. It's about the ongoing work that God is doing in your life, the ongoing transformation, the daily victories over old habits and old thinking patterns. Les Brown says that your story doesn't end with one breakthrough, one victory, one moment of triumph, but rather it's a continuing saga of God's faithfulness, his ongoing work in your life, his daily grace that sustains you and strengthens you. According to Les Brown, people need to see not just where you came from and where you are, but where you're going, the vision you have for your future, the dreams you're pursuing, the goals you're working toward, because this gives them permission to dream again, to set goals again, to believe in their future again. Les Brown believes that your story should inspire people not just to survive their circumstances, but to thrive beyond them. Not just to get through their situation, but to get something from their situation that will help them and others.
When Les Brown talks about his ongoing journey, his continuing growth, his daily commitment to being better than he was yesterday, he shows people that transformation is not a one-time event, but a lifestyle. Not a destination, but a journey. Not something you achieve, but something you live. Les Brown says that every day you live is another page in your story, another opportunity to demonstrate God's power, another chance to inspire someone who needs to see that it's possible to keep growing, keep overcoming, keep becoming more than you used to be. According to Les Brown, your current struggles are not the end of your story, but the setup for your next breakthrough. Your present challenges are not evidence that God has given up on you, but proof that He's preparing you for something greater. Les Brown believes that when you share your story as an ongoing journey rather than a finished product, you give people hope that their story is not over either, that God is still writing their story, that their best chapters may still be ahead of them. The seventh and final principle Les Brown teaches about your story's power to change lives is that you must be strategic about how you share it, understanding that different people need different parts of your story at different times in their lives. Les Brown says that wisdom is not just having a powerful story, but knowing which part of your story to share with which person at which moment to create the maximum impact in their life. According to Les Brown, your story is like a toolbox filled with different tools, and you need to select the right tool for the right job, the right experience to address the right need, the right lesson to meet the right moment in someone's life. Les Brown believes that God has given you multiple experiences, multiple lessons, multiple breakthroughs, not just for your benefit, but so that you would have something for every person you encounter, some part of your journey that connects with some part of their journey. When Les Brown speaks to different audiences, he doesn't tell the same story the same way every time, but rather he selects the parts of his journey that will most powerfully connect with the specific needs, challenges, and circumstances of the people he's addressing. Les Brown says that a master storyteller knows not just how to tell their story, but how to tailor their story, how to emphasize the parts that will resonate most deeply with their audience, how to highlight the lessons that will be most helpful for the people who are listening. According to Les Brown, your story is not a script to be memorized and repeated exactly the same way every time, but rather it's a living, breathing testimony that should be shaped and adapted based on the needs of the people you're trying to help. Les Brown believes that the Holy Spirit will give you wisdom about which parts of your story to share when you're genuinely focused on helping others rather than impressing others, when your motivation is their transformation rather than your recognition. So remember, as Les Brown always reminds us, you have something within you that is greater than whatever happened to you, and that something includes your story, your testimony, your journey from where you were to where you are, and that story has the power to change lives, to give hope to the hopeless, to inspire the discouraged, to lift the fallen, and to show the world that no matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, no matter what labels people have put on you, you can rise, you can overcome, you can become more than your circumstances. And when you share that truth through your authentic, passionate, humble, vulnerable, ongoing, and strategic story, you become a vessel that God can use to transform lives, to heal hearts, to restore hope, and to demonstrate that His power is still at work in the world through people just like you who are willing to let their story become someone else's lifeline.